Ancient Faith Radio brings you the Law of the Spirit with Father Maxime Lissac. Questions and answers on the spiritual life. Father Maxime is the priest at Christ the Savior Orthodox Church in Ottawa, Ontario.
The question is about self-love, its causes, and how we can help our children when they are growing up combat self-love. Perhaps there are two questions here. To answer the first one with regard to the causes. Well, the causes are a break in communion with God and others. When we are out of communion with God and with other people, for whom will we show love? It's a very basic question. We will not love the other. We will not love God. We will love self, because communion has been broken. Love has been thwarted, and so love does not function the way it should. It becomes pathological, it becomes turned back on itself, which is not love. So the problem is that this is a universal phenomenon. Through the entrance of death and sin in the world, we have a break in communion with God, and therefore self-love is a problem which afflicts everybody. We've all got it. We've all got it. It doesn't matter how we were raised. We've got it. Certain upbringings might bring it out more than others, but self-love remains a universal problem. And therefore, it's not that your child is going to be, not have it and then suddenly acquire it environmentally, although there's a lot to be said for that, because there's no question that children acquire a lot environmentally, for sure. How can we help them? We can help them by teaching them the commandments of Christ and asking them in very simple ways to obey them, because the commandments of Christ, by virtue of what they are, combat self-love. So when children practice them, and when we love our children unconditionally, it gives them more of an example, it gives them a way to practice this. When they practice these commandments, they are making a move against self-love. All of the spiritual disciplines of the Church, of course, we ought to be moderate in how we initiate our children into them. But our children need to know about them. Our children need to know about the discipline of prayer, why it's important to stand when we pray and to be respectful, why it's important to fast, even if it's just a little bit, why it's important to go to church, why it's important to be in the services. It's one of the reasons why not just to combat self-love, obviously there are many other reasons, but why I encourage parents to bring their children to services, even if they can only take a certain measured period of time in the services, nevertheless to expose them to it. And of course to teach them to love and to love well. Now we know that as we look at different developmental stages in psychology, that empathy comes with time. But the smallest child is capable of loving unconditionally. The smallest child is capable of loving unconditionally. And in fact, we are often confronted by that when we are raising our children and make mistakes with them. We see their ability to bounce back and to love unconditionally virtually immediately, because they can forgive quickly. And forgiving quickly is a key to avoiding self-love and a key to loving unconditionally. So on one hand we can teach our children, and on the other hand our children can teach us And we can learn from their simplicity and the direct way in which they're able to love, the speed with which they're able to forgive. And finally, by living the whole life of the Church. This is the beauty of living in the Church and having feast days, a whole rhythm. All of it promotes love and communion. We have entered into this communion through baptism. And if we raise our children in this, and we and they are diligent, they will be in the school of the virtues. They will be acquiring virtues, and they will be putting down passions, even if it is on a very basic level.
If you have a question on the spiritual life, you can write to Father Maxim at lawofthespirit@ancientfaith.com. And be sure to like this podcast on Facebook. This has been a listener-supported presentation of Ancient Faith Radio.